So my name is Deborah Johnson. I'm a supervisor in the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality Assessment 3, and I am here to tell you what FDA wants you to know about your letters of authorization. So first, we'll cover four main ideas in this talk. We're going to talk about what is a letter of authorization, or LOA for short. Talk about some LOA basics. I want to talk about the importance of your LOA, and also the importance of keeping things up to date. Now, an LOA can actually be used to authorize reference to multiple items, but I'm going to stick specifically to letters of authorization that are related to Type 2 drug master files. So before we talk about LOAs, I just want to talk a little bit about drug master files. So first, what is it? Well, it's a confidential submission to the agency from a DMF holder. It contains information on manufacturing processes, control strategies, facilities, specifications. So it contains a lot of information. It can support an IND, an NDA, an ANDA, or even another DMF. It is not required. You don't have to use a DMF. But very importantly, the FDA cannot access that information in the DMF without a letter of authorization. So as Aaron kind of alluded to, 21 CFR actually has some information requirements that pertain to a DMF. First, the DMF has to have a complete list of the currently authorized parties that are allowed to incorporate by reference the information in the DMF. Okay, that LOA needs to identify by name, reference, page number, volume, the information that each authorized party is allowed to incorporate. Now, an LOA can allow all of the drug products from a particular party to be included, or they may restrict it. If the LOA restricts it, then the LOA must say what the drug product name is and what the application number is. So, since the DMF must authorize someone to do it, how do they do that? It is through this letter of authorization, or LOA. So, what is the LOA? Okay, it's a formal signed document from the DMF holder. Now, the DMF is a confidential submission that is completely separate from any of the referencing applications. And the LOA is the permission that the DMF holder has given the agency to go into that DMF and access that information in the support of the referencing application. It's important to note that that letter of authorization does not allow the authorized party to access that DMF. And what that also means is if you're an applicant and you call us, we cannot disclose information from the DMF. We cannot tell the customers what is in the DMF. That letter of authorization gives the agency the right to go in and access. So, some LOA basics. Okay, one, it must be on company letterhead. Two, it needs to identify the specific DMF number, the process, the product, the process, the facilities that are being authorized. It needs to tell us who the authorized parties are. And it's important to note that an LOA is for a specific authorized party. You can't have an LOA that gives multiple authorized parties reference to your DMF. Each authorized party needs their own LOA. So, how do you submit this LOA? It needs to be submitted directly to your DMF, and a copy needs to be submitted to each of the referencing applications, or a referencing DMF or IND. But what if the DMF holder and the applicant are from the same company? Do you still need an LOA? The answer is yes. And this is one of the most common mistakes, is assuming that just because the applicant and the DMF holder are from the same company that you don't need an LOA. An LOA needs to be submitted to the DMF and to the applicant, even if they're from the same company or if they're under the umbrella of the same organization. Okay, an LOA. If that's missing, then we have to, there's back and forth, and it slows things down. So even if you're from the same company, you still need an LOA. Okay, here's a plea from us reviewers at FDA. Please don't make a search for your LOAs. I will tell you this is particularly problematic for secondary DMFs. So a secondary DMF, you have a primary DMF, and that DMF is the one that the applicant is referencing. But then that DMF holder may reference another DMF for an intermediate. Okay, that primary DMF needs an LOA from the secondary DMF holder. We would love it if we could find it, but often when there's a secondary DMF, we get our work, we plan it, we're doing the review, you get to section 2.3 or 2.4, and whoa, there's a secondary DMF, there's an LOA, and we're like, oh, now I've got an entirely new submission that needs to be reviewed. And that can really derail us from, timelines, and it can, impact, us getting our work done in a timely manner. So please, please, please don't make us hunt. So how can you do that? Well, when you're a DMF holder, what you need to do is in your electronic submission in section 1.4, if it's an LOA for someone referencing you, put it in 1.4.1, letters of authorization. If it's an LOA allowing you to reference someone else, put it in 1.4.3. I will tell you, when we start a review, the first place we go to, these sections. It's the first place we open it up because it lets us know right off the bat how much work is involved. So if you put the information right here, we will see it, and it really, really makes our lives a lot easier. All right, this is a critical point. No LOA, no review. Okay, the best way to mess up a customer's timeline is not to submit an LOA. I will give you an example that happened to me about 3 months ago. There were 2 DMFs for a particular API. Both of those DMFs were supporting a very high priority application with a significant drug shortage on a really compressed timeline. The primary DMF referenced a secondary DMF. So we went to the primary DMF and we looked for that letter of authorization, and we looked and we looked. It took my poor reviewer about an hour, but we found it. Okay, great. Then we went to the secondary DMF and we looked and we looked for the corresponding LOA. We could never find it. So we had to send an IR to the secondary DMF holder and said, hey, you need to submit this LOA to your application or to your DMF so we know this other guy can reference you. About a day later, we get an email with the LOA. It's like, thanks, but that doesn't help. So we sent a second IR saying, yeah, great, but the LOA needs to be submitted directly to your DMF, which they did. But all in all, we burned up 3 days on a clock that was less than 8 days. Okay, so it's really important. We need those LOAs, and they need to be there when we start, because that is something that can really derail a timeline. So I want to talk to you about, what does your LOA say to the FDA? One, it says you're referencing the entire DMF. You're using every facility in the DMF. You are using every process in the DMF. But what if that isn't true? What if that's not accurate? I want to give you an example. Okay, so we have API by Scotty, who has DMF 00000 for dilithium crystals. It has an existing manufacturing facility, number 1, Acme Drugs in Timbuktu, USA. They just added a new manufacturing facility, so number 2, Acme Drugs in Sayware, USA. Now they have a referencing application from Drugs R Us for ANDA 999999. However, that ANDA actually only uses API manufactured from Facility 1. Now, they were very good stewards. Everybody's got the LOA. That's great. So we go in, we look at the LOA, and it says API by Scotty authorizes Drugs R Us to incorporate by reference information regarding the dilithium crystals from that DMF, and it's relevant to any application filed by Drugs R Us. And the DMF holder authorizes the FDA to go in and look at that information in support of that ANDA. Great. Well, it turns out that facility number 2 has never been inspected. So ANDA 999999 gets a CR because of facility 2. Drugs R Us comes back and said, but wait a minute, I didn't use facility number 2. But remember, the FDA assumes you're using all the facilities and all of the processes that are in that DMF. So what do? How are you going to get out of this pickle? Well, you can amend the LOA. So the DMF holder can go in and amend that LOA and say, look, This applicant's only going to use API from facility number 1. That's perfectly fine. Now, if you are making those kind of nuances, then an LOA needs to specify which applicants are reviewing what parts of the DMF. That needs to be specified in the LOA, because per the FDA Guidance for Industry in 2019, if you don't specify that, we assume the entire DMF is being referenced for every application. So the DMF holder kindly amends the LOA. And now it says here you get to authorize this, you can look at this, but the authorized party only uses API manufactured by facility number 1. Consequence? Well, that facility number 2 still hasn't been inspected, but ANDA 999999 gets approved because they only used facility number 1. So something else to consider. Nothing is forever, and that includes your LOAs. So when things change, your LOAs need to change as well. For example, in 21 CFR, it did say that your DMF needs to contain a current list of people that are authorized to incorporate by reference your information. But if you have removed that permission, you need to remove that LOA and you need to take their name off that list. Because if they're still there, then we think that they're authorized. Conversely, if you've added someone, again, a new LOA needs to be submitted and that list needs to be updated. So please keep that list updated. So companies are not in the witness protection program, and when they change their names, it needs to be updated. So if you have an authorized party and they change their name, the DMF holder needs to submit a brand new LOA with that new information to their DMF in section 1.4. Conversely, if the DMF holder changes names or companies, they also need to change the LOAs. So they're going to need to update all their LOAs with their new name change and put that in their DMF, and then they need to submit all those new LOAs to any applicable referencing party. Okay, now it is really frustrating when you pick up a DMF, because the first thing you do is you go look for the LOAs, and it says I'm doing ANDA whatever, but the name on the LOA does not match the ANDA. There's been a name change somewhere. So we're going to have to kind of stop. We're going to have to send an IR, hey, can you update your LOA because they don't match? Okay, every time we have to stop and kind of communicate like this, it slows things down. So please, keep your LOAs up as names change. Now, I know you are now all complete experts at letters of authorization, but what if you run into something that I did not cover? You have no fear. You can contact us at CDER OPQ inquiries at fda.hhs.gov. So LOAs are tricky things, and they can be complex. I cannot cover all the myriad of issues that can come up with an LOA. So if you run into something, please, please, please reach out to us, and we will try and help you out. So in summary, an LOA is the permission the FDA needs to reference confidential information in a DMF to support it. Without that LOA, we cannot do anything. You need that LOA even if you're from the same company. And I will tell you, this is the most common reason that we are missing LOAs. It's like they just didn't think they needed it because they're from the same company. LOAs can be specific to facilities and processes. And if you need some help with that, if you run into an odd situation where you think this little carve out needs to be happening, please reach out to CDER OPQ inquiries and we can help you. Your LOAs need to stay current. Okay, they're kind of like a living document. As things change, they need to change with it. And I want to acknowledge Melissa Furness. She's in our OPQA, or OPPQ, our policy group. And she's kind of my go-to person when I run into odd and strange LOA issues. So I really want to kind of put a shout out to her because she really helped me out with this presentation. And I just want to say thank you. And I will turn the time over to Dr. Madhu Gauravaram. Oh, Madhu. Gauravaram. I told him I was going to slaughter his name. All right, thank you.